The moment the news broke, the world of sports, and beyond, stopped dead in its tracks. A story so shocking, so entangled in secrecy and heartbreak, that even seasoned journalists found themselves pausing in disbelief. At the heart of it all, a love that defied expectations, a relationship that spanned a chasm of decades, and a revelation that no one saw coming. Imagine being 21, rising to the pinnacle of your sport, celebrated, adored, and yet caught in the crossfire of a scandal that would shake the very foundations of your public image. This was the life of Rika Miyako, a young golfer whose name had become synonymous with talent, grace, and determination. Yet, behind the glittering trophies and smiling selfies lay a world of whispers, clandestine meetings, and a romance that many would call forbidden. On the other side was Shinobu Ishii, a coach whose career had been marked by discipline, respect, and the quiet guidance of countless athletes. Known for his steady hand and tactical genius, he was a figure of authority, a mentor to many. And yet, here was a man whose personal life had been quietly, yet irrevocably, entwined with someone more than 30 years his junior. The age gap alone was enough to raise eyebrows, but the deeper story was even more complicated. From the very beginning, their connection had been impossible to ignore. Rumors swirled around locker rooms, training grounds, and social media forums. Fans speculated, journalists probed, but the pair remained elusive, like shadows moving just beyond the spotlight. Their interactions were always subtle, a lingering glance, a shared laugh, moments that seemed innocent but carried weighty implications. Then came the confirmation. In a statement that rippled across Japan and international sports outlets, Ishii declared unequivocally, all relationships with Miyako had been severed. Our marital relationship was effectively broken, he said, his words carrying the weight of finality, a somber punctuation to a story that had captivated so many. The revelation sent shockwaves. Fans were torn between outrage, sympathy, and sheer disbelief. How could someone so young, so promising, be caught in such a tumultuous situation? How could a man of influence and experience be drawn into a story that would overshadow decades of achievement? The questions mounted, but answers remained scarce, fragmented, and painful. What made this story even more compelling was the complexity of the human emotions involved. Love, ambition, betrayal, and regret intertwined in ways that were almost cinematic in their intensity. It wasn't just a scandal, it was a human drama played out under the unforgiving glare of public scrutiny. Imagine the pressure on Miyako. To be a rising star, to perform under the expectations of a nation, while simultaneously navigating a personal life that was suddenly exposed for the world to dissect. Every swing of her club, every tournament, carried the weight of scrutiny. Every smile was analyzed, every gesture interpreted. It was a crucible of attention that could have crushed even the most resilient soul. And yet, there was a resilience there. Through interviews, social media statements, and subtle appearances, Miyako displayed a courage that was as quiet as it was profound. She faced a world eager to define her, to judge her, and instead chose to focus on her craft, on the moments when she could control something, her performance, her legacy, her own story. Ishii, too, was navigating a minefield. His reputation, painstakingly built over decades, was suddenly reframed through the lens of scandal. Yet his statement was measured, precise, almost clinical in its delivery. There was no apology, no dramatics, only acknowledgement. It was a choice that reflected both accountability and an understanding that some chapters, no matter how personal, could no longer remain private. The public reaction was instantaneous. News outlets exploded with commentary, social media trended with hashtags that spanned the spectrum from condemnation to support. Analysts debated the implications, not just for the individuals involved, but for the culture of sports mentorship, power dynamics, and the responsibilities of public figures. It became more than a story about two people, it was a cultural conversation. But beyond the headlines, beyond the commentary, the emotional core of the story lingered. Two human beings, imperfect, passionate, and flawed, caught in a web of choices that would define their lives. The drama was real, the stakes high, and the consequences irreversible. As the dust settled, there were quiet moments that spoke volumes. A social media post of Miyako smiling after a victory, seemingly unaware, or perhaps intentionally detached, from the surrounding storm. A brief statement from Ishii reflecting on his career, hinting at lessons learned, wisdom gained, and a life moving forward despite public scrutiny. It became clear that this was not just a story of scandal. It was a story of growth, of resilience, and of navigating the impossible. It was a reminder that even those who seem untouchable, those we idolize on screens and stadiums, are subject to the same complexities and heartbreaks as anyone else. Fans and commentators began to notice the subtle signs of recovery. Miyako's performance on the green remained exceptional, her composure unshaken by the whirlwind outside. Ishii returned to coaching with a quiet dignity, focusing on the athletes under his guidance rather than the shadows of his own past. There was a cinematic quality to the way life moved on. The headlines faded, the shock subsided, but the story lingered in memory. Like a dramatic arc in a novel, it left readers and viewers reflecting on the nature of love, responsibility, and the intersection of personal choices with public life. The narrative reminded us that sports, while competitive and thrilling, are also deeply human. They are arenas where triumph and heartbreak coexist, where personal dramas unfold alongside physical feats, where every victory and loss carries layers of unseen emotion. In the weeks that followed, interviews emerged with former colleagues, peers, and analysts. They painted a picture not of scandal, but of complexity. They spoke of mentorship, ambition, and the ways in which personal and professional lives collide in unpredictable, sometimes painful ways. For Miyako, the future remained bright, her talent undeniable. She embodied a narrative of perseverance, of navigating stormy waters with grace, and of finding focus amid chaos. Every swing, every tournament, became a statement, not of defiance, but of resilience. For Ishii, the path forward was one of quiet redemption. His acknowledgement of past mistakes, coupled with a renewed dedication to his craft, painted a portrait of someone learning to navigate the consequences of choices while still contributing positively to the lives of others. The story, ultimately, was about more than age gaps, media attention, or public scandal. It was about humanity. It was about the fragility of relationships, the intensity of passion, and the necessity of accountability. It was about two lives intertwined in ways that neither could fully predict, and the courage required to untangle them. As months passed, the initial shock gave way to contemplation. Commentators reflected not just on the scandal, but on the lessons embedded within it, the importance of transparency, the dangers of secrecy, and the enduring power of personal growth. Fans of sports, particularly golf, saw a young star rise above adversity, her focus and skill unshaken by the storm. They saw a mentor confront the consequences of personal choices, striving to rebuild a life that balanced accountability with contribution. The emotional resonance of the story lingered, not because of the scandal itself, but because of the human truth at its center. It reminded audiences that even in a world of fame, money, and accolades, the human heart remains vulnerable, complicated, and profoundly impactful. And then came the quiet moments of closure. Social media posts, public statements, and interviews offered glimpses into the aftermath. Miyako continued to excel, her determination a beacon for young athletes. Ishii maintained a professional focus, his guidance shaping the next generation. The drama had ended, but the narrative stayed with those who witnessed it. It became a story told not only in sports circles but in broader discussions of ethics, mentorship, and the delicate balance between private life and public expectation. In reflection, the story of Rika Miyako and Shinobu Ishii was more than sensational headlines. It was an exploration of love and loss, of mistakes and redemption, and of the extraordinary resilience of those who must navigate both the pressures of public scrutiny and the turbulence of personal emotion. It was a story that captivated a nation, challenged assumptions, and ultimately inspired empathy. It reminded viewers that heroes are human, and that even in moments of scandal, there exists the possibility for growth, understanding, and transformation. As the final chapter unfolded, one couldn't help but feel a complex mixture of sorrow and hope. The forbidden romance had ended, the public spectacle had faded, but the lessons endured. Integrity, resilience, and the courage to face the consequences of one's choices remained timeless. The tale of Miyako and Ishii, with all its twists and turns, left an indelible mark on sports culture and the collective consciousness. It was a testament to the fact that even amid controversy, human spirit and talent can shine through. And in the quiet aftermath, as tournaments continued and careers progressed, the story served as a reminder that life is rarely simple. It is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes scandalous, but it is also beautiful, transformative, and deeply human. For viewers, fans, and participants alike, it left a lingering question: how do we balance passion and responsibility? How do we navigate love, ambition, and public scrutiny without losing ourselves? And perhaps most importantly, how do we emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate on the other side? The answer, as always, was not simple. But the journey, as seen through the lens of Miyako and Ishii, offered a vivid, emotional, and unforgettable illustration of the stakes, the struggles, and the triumphs that define both sports and life itself. In the end, the story concluded not with judgment, but with reflection. It was a narrative of challenge and resilience, of human imperfection and extraordinary courage. It was a reminder that the most compelling moments in sports, and in life, are those that reveal the depths of the human heart. And as the camera pans away, leaving viewers with the echo of headlines, the glint of trophies, and the quiet determination of two people moving forward, one truth remains clear: even in scandal, even in heartbreak, the spirit of humanity endures, resilient, unyielding, and endlessly inspiring.